Defeating the Heart on Ascension 20 is the hardest challenge Slay the Spire has to offer, requiring expert play and almost no room for error. For some reason was something I decided to do with every character, starting with Sir Bonghington's. Obviously, the most logical decision to start the run is to gain a lantern, which provides me +1 energy on the first turn of combat, which I always remember to use, and not a potentially incredibly powerful boss relic. With that out the way, I begin climbing the floors, clearing every combat without a single misplay and acquiring some decent cards to aid me in the elite fight I have just reached. However, due to a severe disdain for my bones, I completely forget that potions exist and take a completely unnecessary 24 damage straight to the face. However, despite my perfect play of saving a potion which I got rid of at the end of the exact fight, it probably would have been the most useful, I was somehow still alive, pushing onwards to the next elite, in which I did shockingly remember I have potions, and despite almost meeting my demise, I lived to see another floor. Continuing to venture up floor after floor, another elite stood before me, who I dispatched as gracefully as the others before. Being a cowardly little baby, I climbed to the campfire instead of rushing a 4th elite, execute the lost combat of the act, and find myself face to face with the Act 1 boss, whom I vanquished with the same finesse I do all my foes, with complete disregard for my own well-being. With corruption and Stego Eye in hand, I step out onto the precipice of Act 2. Easily ascending the first few floors, acquiring fuel to feed corruption. Though the good times were bound to come to an end, the stupid gremlin's wheel cursed me. Though it mattered not, it was removed just 2 floors above. Additionally, I acquired a stabby knife, which I definitely stored for every fight. And in no time at all, it was time for the automaton to fall. Which of course it did, due to the pure skill of drawing my corruption before the minions could forcefully acquire it, allowing me to easily disassemble the brass contraption before it could even lay a scratch on me. Claiming my reward, solidifying my completely earned victory with Dead Branch and Corruption, one of the most broken combos in the game. With my near perfect deck constructed, I strolled through Act 3 with the ease of someone who is clearly a seasoned veteran. With everything out the way, it was finally time to face the Act 3 bosses. Dono and Deku fell one after the other. And despite getting Timeka as my second boss, due to my excellent piloting my deck, they too met the same fate. Now it was time to defeat the last obstacle standing between me and the Heart, the Act 4 elites, who met the same fate as all who had tried to defy me thus far. The end was finally in sight. The beating one had to be silenced. Starting off the fight rather poorly, my hubris getting the better of me, and despite my best efforts, I had failed. There was no way out, and I died. However, this was not the end. The fairy in the bottle I had carried all the way from Act 1 brought me back, buying me enough time to win, the way I always had, with no regard for my own well-being. 1 down, 3 to go. Some may say that my first win was handed to me on a silver platter. However, they are completely neglecting the difficulty of spamming random cards and hoping for the best. Anyway, ignoring the idiots who would discount such perfect gameplay onto the side, whose run demonstrated the same brilliance as the first. Starting off with good old Nial's Lament, a blessing you're guaranteed to be offered only after demonstrating great bravery in battle. With Nial's Lament in hand, there's clearly no logical reason to scout further ahead on the map. It's far more logical to just charge forward going for the elite snipe, ignoring the map, with the full confidence you'll pull it off, which of course I do. Then proceed to continue ignoring the map entirely and accidentally, I mean highly intentionally, root myself directly into the burning elite, completely unshaken. Which I obviously escaped with but a scratch, though a rest would be nice just to untangle the old joints, which is why it was a good thing I scouted ahead and rooted towards that campfire. Which is just past the 2 hallway fights, an elite and a question mark, no problem at all. By what some liars might call a miracle, obviously any person with half a brain would acknowledge it was pure, raw skill. I made it to the Act 1 boss, whom I defeated with ease. It wasn't even close. I have no idea what all this panicking, which never happened, was all about. Acquiring a speculative nightmare over an alchemist, a clear demonstration of a sound and rational mind, and a Pandora's box which rather rudely provided me with no block. Which to a lower skill player, the prospects of having no block cards in their entire deck is terrifying. However, to me it is equally as terrifying. I am almost certainly going to die. However, there is no point dwelling on the inevitable. On to Act 2. Despite my deck's lack of block, it did have a rather large amount of upfront damage, carrying me through the early floors, scooping up anything which seemed vaguely useful, and gaining additional max HP when the cards were useless. Like, who needs an acrobatics which has major synergies with both sneaky strike and the deflect that was just added to the deck, when you can have 2 additional max HP? With my deck finally stabilizing, I make it to the first elite of the act, which goes shockingly well considering my track record, and with one last combat out of the way, I dazedly stare at the Act 2 boss, 46 health to my name. Which depleted rather rapidly, however so did the collectors, and they lost the race. Finally, my deck was saved. With Wraith form, all I had to do was use my massive amounts of intellect, which I have already demonstrated time and time again I'm highly proficient at using, to nightmare the Wraith form and claim victory with the help of Snecko Eye's draw. Act 3 started off great, enemy after enemy falling, allowing me to easily ascend the floors. However, the giant head did, despite my perfect play, manage to take a chunk out of me. However, it matters not, as in this run alone I have survived far worse. The next elite I fought after a brief respite in the shop went as well as it could have possibly gone. I definitely wouldn't have taken less damage if I had nightmared a smarter card. Though despite my questionable vitality, I continued to rush elite after elite, the hallway fights between being dispatched with surgical precision, and the elites with almost the same amount of finesse. And despite the odds, I was standing before the Act 3 bosses. Dono and Deku fell once again to just a purely marvelous performance of game mastery. Now, Time Guy was the only thing standing between me and Act 4, my single brain cell splitting into 2, activating its true power and nightmaring the Wraith form, giving me all the survivability I needed to put this git in the ground. The Act 4 shop offered me the choice between 2 last boons before the final threats, the ability to clear the debuff from Wraith form or +1 poison. Obviously, I took the most logical answer as always, because why would I want to clear a detrimental debuff which makes half my cards useless, when instead my Noxious Fumes can apply +1 poison? The Act 4 elites, in all honesty, could have gone better, as I'm entering the hard fight with 13 HP, which is unideal. However, it is all I need. I start off the fight by playing the well-laid plans, which I ingeniously pulled out of that book to hold my nightmare for the Wraith form I expertly draw next turn, which happens to cost 0, allowing me to block the big attack. Going down to 2 HP from the multi-attack, leaving me with just enough HP to play Afterimage, making it possible for me to play cards without perishing. Using my Alchemize to gain a potion to clear artifact, and the well-laid plans to hold Piercing Wail to survive the multi-attacks. However, despite my best efforts of whittling the heart down, the turn that was bound to come arrived. A 4th multi-attack, and I was out of Piercing Wails. I did what little damage I could, but with minus 38 dexterity, there was nothing I could do, and I clicked end turn, waiting for my demise. However, it did not come. My Orichalcum gave me the perfect amount of block to kill the heart with my thorns before it could end me. And with the most impressive win in Slay the Spire I've ever had out the way, everything just perfectly coming together, 2 characters remained. Onto the defect, probably my best character, which of course is a very high bar as demonstrated by my skill on the others. Once again off to a wonderful start with Niao's Lament indicating joyous past times, trying the tried and true method of ignoring all else and rushing the elite snipe, which to no one's surprise paid off, acquiring a number of solid cards along the way including an on-sale Seek, a free removal, more max HP, very good relics from both the event and the chest, and finally of course the 1 HP elite. All of this of course was expertly calculated. Continuing my flawless play, I upgrade Doom and Gloom in prep for the Tricentenaries because there is no way a seed of this quality and class gives me Nob, who were dispatched with a concerning number of my bones intact. In addition, it is in no way concerning that I've taken less than 4 hallway fights, so the last combat in the act before the boss is an easy pool fight. Well, no time to dwell on the lack of card rewards. Either the slime boss or me has to die. Which of course was the slime being perfectly dispatched. I definitely didn't do pool maths and split it before I could dual cast my Doctor's Orb. I intentionally split it early because I knew I'd get perfect draw to decimate the spawn, acquiring a good old Bias Cog and Plasma Jar, which carried me all the way to my first elite of Act 2, further enhancing my deck along the way. As expected, the elite fight went flawlessly. I was full blocking or close to it every turn, and when I didn't draw enough, I had the skill pot to compensate, which of course I saved for next turn because I knew there would be no block in it, and it would be better to tank the damage this turn and use it next turn for lethal. Acquiring a second Bias Cog because having 2 of the best cards in my deck is clearly better than 1. Immediately rushing the next elite fight, starting off by drinking my focus potion at the end of my turn so my orbs do less damage to obliterate the enemy's morale, enabling me to win not only taking no damage but healing 7. And after a brief speed bump, it was time to kill the Book of Stabbing once again, which though some chip damage was taken, the book was shredded with ease. Recursion clearly being the best pick, because why would I want to evoke my Darkness Orb 5 times in a row when I can evoke it once, loop it back to the front, and then just do that 5 more times to get the same effect. With the last fight of the act out the way, it was time to face the champ, who you don't want to just cook a big Darkness Orb in one shot. That would be a rookie's mistake. You want to split him early so you can burn through the fairy in the bottle so you have more potion slots available to be filled with future rewards. Additionally, when you get to the relic reward, who wants free energy from Coffee Dripper, where you can randomize your 6 remaining strikes of defense into potentially useful cards? My deck being rather strong, I breezed through Act 3, slicing through the floors like butter. Even the Flaming Leaf was no match for my perfection. Mere 3 floors remaining before the boss, I dismantled them as I had all the floors before. And standing before me was the Woke Bird, who was rather scary, though of course I calculated that Dead Branch would give me a white noise with an echo form in sight, allowing me to play 1 Bias Cog twice, deplete my focus then repeat to make it out injured but alive. Dono and Deku were obviously a non-threat, easily outscaled and laid to rest. It was now time to fight the biggest threat in the run, not the heart but the Act 4 elites. The shop provided me with healing for when I got to the boss, making the fight substantially less punishing if I could just make it through it. Which of course I did because I knew I would draw the perfect cards and Dead Branch would give me exactly the cards I needed to win and enter the hard fight on full health. Not only that, it would solidify my win by providing me both with Echo Form and Data Disc as my rewards. I would need to play abhorrently bad to lose this run, something which I am completely incapable of. Which is why the hard fight went exactly like the previous 2 wins, perfectly with no hiccups. Bias Cogs plus Echo Form went through and the heart was no more. Three down, 1 to go. the Watcher, the hardest and least consistent character in Slay the Spire to win with. She relies on a kit which involves going in and out of a stance that makes her deal and take double damage, making her kit incredibly punishing. Which is what I would say if I didn't go Infinite 20 floor scope. And that's how I beat Slay the Spire on Ascension 20 by pure skill with every character. Shockingly, I've got a lot better at the game since playing these runs. They were full of misplays and the silent run I had no business winning in any universe. However, now it's time to get good enough to get a rotating hard streak. How hard could it honestly be?